colleagues, dear participants of the conference, today I would like to speak about the results of this work that was conducted in 2015-2018. We were analyzing the Far East stellar sea line holdouts, and first I would like to talk about the whole team, and I would like to thank all of my colleagues. You can see their names at the bottom. So this is the list of various organizations that were supporting or contributing to this work. Right, stellar sea lion. This is an endemic animal in this part. And you see that from southern California, okay, then to the Strait of Bering, then to Sakhalin. This is the area where they live. And there are two subspecies. Okay, close to the United States, it is the northern sea lion, and the green frame demonstrates its habitat, and the western population, and this is called the northern stellar sea lion. It is shown here. This is the borderline between the Russian and the American waters, and we are going to speak only about the western part of it, to the west from this line, and this is close to the Asian Pacific coasts, and here we can speak about the Asian population of this species. We are going to speak about counts. This is a migrating animal, and the most part of the year they are all over the ocean, and they swim long distances, and every year for breeding they return to the same holdouts. And when they come back, we count them, because the majority of animals in the reproductive stage stay here. Then the pups are born, and it is easy to count all these pups, and it is quite easy to count the numbers and see the condition of the population. This area is quite big, so it is possible only to survey some sections of it. So in 2015, it was in the Commandos Island and the eastern part of Kamchatka. Then next year, it was the northern part of the Okhotsk Sea, and then 2018, it was close to the Kuril Islands. Here you can see the track of the boat. So we do it on a boat. So we approach holdouts, then we use drones, because now they are easily available. And then we analyze photographs, and we count all the animals in detail, and we see how many females, males, and pups there are. Now the results, very briefly about the results. In the western part of the Bering Sea, there are no reproductive rookeries. They don't breed here. And in 2015, at the end of June, we found only 89 young animals, and there were no pups. Then the Commandos Islands, about 500 animals, and there were 169 pups. Then Kamchatka, 610 animals altogether, and 84 pups. And that was all in 2015. Then 2017, in the Sea of Okhotsk, there were over 2,500 animals and about 1,700 pups. Then the Sakhalin, almost 5,000 animals, both adults and juveniles, and about 1,200 pups. And then you see to the east from Asia, see that over 2,000 pups were born. So these are counts for 3 seasons, and we managed to reach all these data, and now we can see the numbers all together. In the Far East, we identified we identified in these hollowouts over 13,000 animals and over 5,000 pups. And the total count of this animal, so the overall number of animals was about 18,000. But of course, not all the animals, when we are counting them, stay on shore. Some of them are still migrating, some of them are in water, and of course, quite a big share of this population hasn't been observed. So in order to do the overall counts, we use a correction factor index, and it was identified at the beginning of the 1980s. And we used this correction factor, and we can roughly estimate that in 2018, in the Russian waters, there were over 24,000 stellar sea lions. If we consider all the animals that we have identified, it shows that about 1/4 of the animals are in water. So we couldn't observe them. That is why we couldn't take them into account. Let's have a look at the sub-regions. Okay, the Western Bering Sea. I'm going to show the dynamics of the populations. This is for the past 40 years. And I took part in these works, and I know that these are reliable data. But as for the trend, I am analyzing only the past decade, because this is most relevant for taking any measures to protect these animals. So we see that the reduction is over 30%. Although we have thousands of animals here, the annual decline was about 3%. This is Commander's Islands. You see how the counts were changing, and the red shows both adults and juvenile adults, and the green shows changes in the number of pups. And we see that throughout this time, these 4 decades, the counts were falling. And we see that in 1919, okay, so there was 30% decline in the number of pups, and it never came back to the same line. And in the past 10 years, the decline of the number of pups is 28%, and the annual decline rate is 3.4. This is for pups. And for adults, the difference is 31% now, and the annual decline is over 3%. Now, East Kamchatka. Approximately the same curve can be observed here, the same dynamics. We see that at the end of the 20th century, the numbers fell, and during the first decade of the 21st century, we see that this these are quite low levels. And in the past 10 days, the decline of pups is 18%, and the annual decline rate is about 2%. And as for the juvenile and adult animals, the decline rate is 6%, and the annual decline is 0.6%. So although there are measures taken to conserve this basin, it is a protected area and there's no commercial harvesting, but still these measures do not demonstrate positive results, so something should be changed here. Then the Kuril Islands. At the beginning of the 21st century, we saw this declining pattern, but then after 2000, okay, it grew slightly, and there was a hope that the critical period for the stellar sea lion in the Kuril Islands was over. But no, in 2015, after a long period when we did detailed counts, we realized that both the numbers of pups and adult animals was much lower, and the trend And the trend for this 12-year period, we see that the decline was 17%, or the annual decline rate 2.4% for the pups, and for the non-pups these numbers were 24%, and the annual decline rate was 3%. So this is what is happening in the area of Kuril Islands, although there's no commercial catching, and some measures are taken. Then the northern sea of Okhotsk. This is a large area where there have been always many sea lions. After the Second World War, there was a commercial harvesting, and then it took quite a while to increase the numbers. We see that there have been no regular information, but okay, so there was some growing pattern, but then we see that the numbers again fell down. So there's about 2,000 pups here. The trend for the past 10 years, so the decline in the pups number was 6%, and the annual decline rate was less than 1%. So this population of the stellar sea lion is in quite a stable shape. And as for the juvenile and adult animals, -8%. So we see that the population counts are at about the same level. And now Sakhalin. These animals didn't breed after the Second World War here, or late or in the middle of the 20th century, but beginning from the 1980s, yeah, they began breeding. And here we mainly look at the numbers for the Tюлени island, and we see that the numbers are growing. And in the past 10 years, yeah, you see that the difference is 3 times. Yeah, and now we have great numbers, over 2,000 pups, and it's one of the biggest reproductive holdouts in the world. And as for the adults, yeah, so the number has doubled, and the annual growth rate was about 8%. So this is the overall picture. Sorry, Vladimir, timing is important. Yeah, I'm finishing, thank you. Right, the negative trend is shown in red, and we see that the growth is observed only in Sakhalin. Right, you see, so these are the numbers. Okay, so the average is -8%. Thank you very much. Subspecies were identified. It was in 2009. There was a work published by Phillips and a marine association. Yeah, so they confirmed this. Yeah, they acknowledged this subdivision of animals, and it was in 2012, 2013, and this is widely used everywhere. Then the number of stellar sea lion on counts for the beginning of the 20th century. Well, it is available, but only for certain holdouts. I was trying to collect all that data, and together with Laughlin, we published our work at the beginning of the 2000s, and we included everything that was available. But of course, there were no detailed data similar to what we have been collecting now. So we had to extrapolate. Yeah, we had to sort of analyze this data in a certain way. At the Commanders Islands, at that time, sea lions No. It was not about 100 years ago. No, it was 2012, 2019, not 1912, 1919. Oh yes, it's quite interesting. Unfortunately, due to the lack of time, I wasn't able speaking about it in detail. You know, there is certain information on the whole region, okay, and if we surveyed just 2 holdouts, you know, it's not enough for the whole region. So we have provided information on these accumulated data. Okay, so starting from 2015, yeah, we did these studies in different sections of the sea. So there were some one-off studies, and you know, migration is very high. So we need to accumulate all the data. So I hope that in the near future, we'll be able, maybe this year, we'll be able to do these counts, and then we'll see a better picture. As for the Kuril Islands, the last study was in 2018, but every year we are trying to add something. Okay, so last year it was the western part. Yeah, but these are just one-off studies, and my approach in this presentation was to demonstrate the situation, trying to look at the whole picture. And we see that in the northern part of Okhotsk Sea and Sakhalin, it was possible to compare. As for the Isle of Sakhalin, okay, so there are some data for 2020, but only for the southern part. Yeah, as for the northern, no, they didn't do anything. Yeah, so it is better to look at only these years, because then it gives you a full picture. Next question. What about the errors of visual counts? You know, we didn't compare, we didn't do any comparative statistical analysis, and I was providing just specific, you know, direct numbers. And largely, we were analyzing the trend, okay, so how the whole population was changing, but not defining some statistical deviation, parameters, or whatever. So we were using just numbers, nominal numbers. Then Japan and stellar sea lion there. I mentioned that they do not breed there, and in the past, they were registered there only in winter, and there were very few of these animals. But in the past 5 years, you know, they invaded, you know, these Russian stellar sea lions. So they returned there, and they are, it's a threat to the fish they are trying to protect there. And it's the same like in Columbia River in the United States. You know, so in Japan, so they define quotas, and these animals, you know, they are killed. It is possible to do that, because otherwise the populations of fish, this herring fish, they try to protect it. Yeah, but also as for Maniron Island, they also come there. So for Japan, these stellar sea lions is a threat, and we are still thinking, we are trying to determine how what can be done with it, and we try to define where these animals come from, probably from Sakhalin, where we can observe these growing tendencies, although, as I said, in Japan, they kill, they shoot these animals. And once again, Japan, in Japan, they do not breed. The breeding season, and 99.9% all these sea lions, they return to the Russian waters. Yeah, and in Asia, there are 10 non-reproductive rookeries. Okay, thank you. And there's one more question, right? I see that Vladimir Vasilyevich raised his hand. Hello once again. Vladimir Nikolaevich, I have a question. There's lack of time. So you showed a slide and you showed us the numbers of those sea lions which are in the water. So where did you get these numbers? Can you explain once again? Okay, you counted the animals, terrestrial numbers. What about animals in the water? Okay, I will try to show this slide. Sorry, just a second. It is quite simple. Okay, so it is a regular calculation. Can you see it? No, you can't. Can you? Can you see? Yes, it is being shared. All right, but somehow it is not displayed. Is it full screen? Is it a full screen now? Yes. Right, this slide. So you see, we use this correction factor. And we use the survival factor and the reproductive success of females. It is pretty straightforward. And you see this Calkins and Pitcher, they identified it. Okay, they were analyzing the commercial data at Aleutian Islands in the 90s, and they came to a conclusion that in a stable population, the number of pups shows the overall population counts, but it should be multiplied by 4.5. And actually, I've been using this factor in many works, and we count all the pups, alive and dead. So altogether, we counted 5,508 pups. All right, so these are the counted pups. So it means that there were at least 5,500 females. And then we multiplied by 4.5. So the estimated number is about 25,000. Alexei Altukhov showed some other material. I see we are obtaining new data, and we use information on these branded animals, okay, their reproductive rates and so on. Yeah, so there are different coefficients and factors used for the number of birth rates calculations. So after the end of this more detailed work, then maybe this number will be corrected, and maybe it would be possible to show it retrospectively as well, how the numbers of stellar sea lions were changing in the Russian waters. So this is an estimated expert assessment. Thank you very much.